Greetings, and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit around and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie. I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
The sun is shining. It looks like we've gone at least half an hour without rain. How are things for you in sunny Scotland?
Really grey. There's not a hint of sunshine here. It is not too cold, but it's just kind of a nothing day.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I guess if we were on a different podcast right now, we might talk about being in Pepperland. But let's not do that because that was always the part of that particular podcast that really annoyed me. Although I enjoyed everything else about it, the reference to Pepperland just for some reason wound me up. So let's not do that. How you been?
Yeah, I've been all right, thank you. Getting ready to go away for a nice big trip, so that's going to be good fun. But otherwise, just
Excellent.
just enjoying myself and full of happiness as a result. So yeah, I'm feeling sunny.
Are you going to do any beat? Oh no, 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 no! You're almost heading into song territory there. Too soon. Are you going to be doing any Beatles related touring when you are away? You're going to be visiting the Budokan?
I don't think that I am. I'm going to Tokyo and Seoul for our lovely listeners. But I don't think I'm going to be doing much in the way of Beatles-related activities. But having said that, I am going to go to the absolutely massive Tower Records that somehow still exists in Tokyo
Yeah.
and spend a lot of time and possibly a lot of money there. So it's not impossible that I won't at least come back with some kind of Beatles-related product.
It is worth pointing out that every time you mention the name of the capital of South Korea, the only thing that pops into my head is the chorus from a certain Spandau Ballet song.
Okay, good. That's
Let me just say that. I did something music related this week, which I would like to tell you about. It was my good lady wife is a big fan of Florence and the Machine, and I also think they're perfectly passable. So we were at the O2 on Monday for probably the first concert I've been to since we went to Hamburg on her birthday a few years ago to watch her. Which was it was a really interesting experience. And there could be some links to what we're going to talk about later on, dear listener. You have to sort of remember this for later. And it was really good, and loads of people had a really good time. The sound was good, and yeah, despite what you might think about, or some people think about her and her music, the band really rocks. The drumming was so powerful, and the bass was effective, even though it was very much a root note bass approach, but it was a real kind of thundering that was going on, and I think you don't really get that on the record. But I thought it was really interesting, very enjoyable. Some of the songs I had no idea what they were off the latest one, but it was interesting that it was less of a half of it. I said, was less of a concert than the previous time, and more of a sort of like a thematic show, as it were, which did kind of make me wonder whether or not someone that was new to her music would be able to access it quite as much as someone who was an obvious fan. And I wonder if some of these artists get to a point where they know that they're not necessarily picking up new fans, so they've got to do something to kind of keep the existing ones coming back, which kind of then maybe sort of think, of course, McCartney's not like that really, is he? He just plays whatever he wants to play, and he's quite happy to, churn out the hits from days of yore. So it was quite interesting, but it also rammed home the fact just how flipping expensive it is. Which obviously, it was a pre-birthday present. I'm very happy to do it, and everybody had a good time. But then um, my wife made an interesting comment. So, are there any bands that you'd quite like to see? And so I did spend a couple of days this week looking at gigs in like Bristol, for example, and Bournemouth and Exeter, which are kind of the nearest sort of hubs. And think like even some of those in those venues, they're like 50 quid for a seat, and oh, actually no, one was about 47 quid standing to see Saint Etienne in Bristol on their last ever tour. And then I spent quite a bit of time listening to. I really do like a lot of Saint Etienne,
So
but
Etienne are a great band, very underappreciated, but they're a
they
really,
are.
really top-notch band.
But I just thought, do I want to spend 50 quid knowing that I like a lot of the songs, but not as much as everybody else in the room? I don't know. I mean, there were quite a few that I looked at and thought that'd be all right. But when you're spending 50 quid on something where you're thinking that will be all right, and bearing in mind Bristol's like an hour and three-quarter drive from here, so then you've got that whole bit about, oh, it's on a work night. Oh, well, maybe I'll get a hotel. You think, I don't
Just
know.
mounts up and mounts up.
It does, and I can't justify it. Not for something I'm a bit interested in. And I don't know about you. I mean, you're also a tall gentleman. I just spend more time worrying about who's behind me and whether or not they can see, and am I ruining their enjoyment?
I can relate for sure.
Which is quite interesting because you look at a lot of the stock footage of the girls screaming at Beatles concerts. They're all sitting down.
Yes. Well, different times, isn't it?
Different times, different times. I don't know if I'm that excited about live music enough to want to go and see something other than when she wants to go, and I'm really happy to go with. So an interesting experience, but I just feel like the whole kind of live music scene has changed so much since you could just go. I've got a funny feeling. Well, there used to be a Tower Records in Glasgow.
Yeah, there was one down by Central Station, just under it's called the Hielanman's Umbrella, but
Yeah,
it's the long tunnel sort of underpass that the railway lines go over in Glasgow. So yeah, there was a
yeah,
big one down there. I spent a fortune in
and
there.
my reason for mentioning that is I just had this memory of going in there up to the top floor and buying where you could then buy tickets for gigs
Mm.
at the garage on Sauchiehall Street, and I remember doing that with like Stereolab and the Blue Tones, the bands that I kind of liked but didn't know a massive amount about, but I was quite happy to pay 10, 12 quid to go and see them, in the garage rather than pay 75 quid minimum to go see someone at the O2. Um, yeah,
I mean, I consider myself quite lucky living in Glasgow because we have still got a few small venues like that where you don't have to break the bank to see decent acts, like the Garage and King Tut's and places like that. We saw Ginger Root in King Tut's last year, and I think it was the tickets were like £15 or 17.50 or something like that. And they're not like a
okay.
big band that I love, but my fella is a big fan of them, and I was more than happy to go along because I played King Tut's. It's a great venue, and it was just nice to be able to go and see a good band and a good sound system. And even if they weren't 100% my thing, at least it was like affordable. It wasn't I wasn't throwing away a fortune on something that was okay, that was fine. So I do consider myself quite lucky, but I think you are 100%
Yeah,
right in terms of the way that things have changed.
yeah. We should probably get on and talk about the song.
Yeah,
Do you want
yeah.
to insert that sunny day reference again?
No, that's all right. I think
Okay.
we've finished with this edition of Old Men Ramble On about how it's not like it used to be, and we could actually get around to talking about the song now.
Side two. We're on side two.
We are. It's great. And well, I suppose we have to do the schema, as you like to say. So yes, well, we're here to talk about Good Day Sunshine, despite that not being particularly evident from anything that we've said so far. So yeah, let's just start at the beginning. What do you think of Good Day Sunshine?
I think this is one of those songs that is probably best played on a sunny day with the in a convertible with the roof down, in a nice sort of upbeat type compilation that's telling you all about lazing on a sunny afternoon, and about good vibes, good times. And I think it would fit in really, really nicely. Then it's just um, a nice upbeat contrast to some of the slightly more dour elements of side one. Not that that's a criticism. Dour is a staple of really effective pop and rock. But this is just like a blast of positivity, and it's just works. Again, I don't know how much you can analyze it because it's not much of a song, very short. It's a run of songs that are just over 2 minutes. It starts, it does its job, and it leaves you with enough positivity to take you forward, amongst some of the oncoming Lennon cynicism that will follow. But it's top-notch cheesy McCartneyism. What do you think?
Very similar, I have to admit. I don't think there's going to be a great disparity in our opinions for this episode, unfortunately. But it's a great song. It's terribly pretty, isn't it? It's just a nice, beautiful little song. It feels sincere and genuine. It's not anything great, sort of greatly revelatory or whatever, but it captures the mood that it's going for incredibly well. It's a very easy song to like. I don't know how long it lingers once you stop listening to it, but when you are listening to it, it's a very effective. It generates the atmosphere it's looking for. It's got a lovely little feeling of spontaneity about it, and it's just a really dreadfully nice song. Again, how
Yeah.
much window that leaves open for critical analysis? Well, let's find out what the running time of this episode is by the time we finish. But it's a delightful little song.
Fair enough. I mean, I feel as though it's McCartney on the right side of his instinct to draw upon old genres. So the piano in particular, I think is, it nearly takes it into oblidi oblida territory, but it stays just on the right side. And whether that's that, because I think is it George Martin that's playing the
Yeah,
piano,
it's
or is
George
it
Martin that does that. Yeah.
whether it's that does it, but it just rocks enough rather than borders into that sort of cheesy down the pub sing along kind of territory. But you can see, you almost sort of feel as though that perhaps there's that spark in McCartney because he's not really done that for a while. Um, about that sort of right, here's another style of music that I can take my creativity into. So it maybe hints that there's that sort of thing coming.
Yeah, and it's not a style that McCartney particularly returns to, particularly in his sort of Beatles phase. That kind of slightly, well, barrel house is usually the word that's used to describe it for the instrumental break, but that slightly kind of honky tonk piano sound and all that's not really something that McCartney returns to particularly. And like you mentioned, Obladi Oblada, but that's got a slightly cod reggae feel to it, or Maxwell Silver Hammer, or Your Mother Should Know, or something like that. And not to discuss the sort of individual merits of each of those songs, but stylistically, they don't really sound like Good Day Sunshine. So it's not quite a one and done, given how many songs
Hmm.
McCartney's written, but there isn't really much that has quite this feel to it in his certainly in his Beatles back catalogue, and that kind of makes it an interesting proposition as well.
Yeah, and you can sort of can't really see there's a predecessor for it either. Although there are some elements of this that do appear on other songs on, even on this album. So for example, the fade out as well has huge similarities to She Said with the overlapping
Hmm.
line. But it still works. It doesn't really feel like you're going, oh, didn't they just do this? Oh, that's a bit of a shame. It just works. It feels different. Maybe that's the balance between McCartney's voice in this and Lennon's voice in the last one. So it doesn't feel as though it's being repetitive. And also, you do get a verse which ends for an instrumental break in the same way that they use, and the band begins to play on Yellow Submarine. But again, it works. You can sort of imagine sitting under this tree and the sun is shining and everybody's happy, and then perhaps George Martin's rolling past on a flatbed truck with a piano, and he's got a boater on, and he's both tipping his hat with the boater as well as playing that particular piano piece, and everyone's going, "This is nice," and wondering when Mary Poppins is going to turn up.
Well, that's a delightful image. Thank you for that. I will
Thank
remember
you.
that every
That's all
time I
right.
listen to this song now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, yeah, I think one of the reasons that the overlapping stuff at the end of the song doesn't sound familiar is also because on She Said, like there's like full instrumentation underneath it, whereas here it's almost entirely vocal, so it's
Yeah.
not a complete replication of the same thing, even though it's obviously doing the same thing. And I think that helps to make it quite distinctive as well. It doesn't sound like it's just pulling tricks out of the bag that we've already listened to. And that's kind of, I mean, it's a funny song in terms of its instrumentation. You know, there's no guitar on it. It's mostly just this piano line. It's got these weird little time signature changes as well, which is again, you know, we there's quite a few songs in Revolver which have like shifting time signatures. Dr. Robert is the first one that's come to mind, but you know, take your pick. And all these little tricks and tips, but they're just all sort of just put together in a way that feels just sort of unique. It doesn't feel like this is just a conglomeration of parts from other songs. And I think a lot of that does come down to the way that this song captures a feeling of spontaneity. I mean, it was recorded pretty quickly. You know, there's not like a bunch of outtakes that crop up in the super duper hyper quantum mega deluxe version, etc., etc. There's nothing on Anthology. It's just like, we've done it, we've quickly recorded it, away we go. And that feeling of spontaneity, I think, really helps to avoid that repetitiousness.
Is that a word?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I 100% agree, because the memory is of nothing other than the vocals and the piano. You know, reflecting back, I cannot think of a single other thing. I don't even have anything to say about what Ringo's doing here, which I'm sure is you know, perfectly fine.
Fine, yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's not to the forefront. So, but then that's not what the song is all about. The song is all about the piano and the vocals. What I will say is that perhaps the harmonies don't strike me as being the the cleanest and clearest, or perhaps I'd go the other way actually and say they are too clean, and as a result perhaps don't hit me quite as well as some of the other elements of harmonization that goes on elsewhere on the album, for example. But it's still pretty good. We're saying it's not quite as good as X, Y, or Z, um, and that's fine. There is the you know, there's the lyrical side of it, which is, let's face it, completely vacuous, but it doesn't matter because it works. You know, this, I don't think this is a tune where you'd want much depth with the melody that's written. You want a, I'm happy, my girlfriend's happy, we're sitting here, it's a lovely day kind of lyric. Anything else would just be completely jarring. So you've kind of hit the nail on the head there as Mr. McCartney, and judged it absolutely right.
Yeah, this is not a complex lyric by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, you're right. Of course, there's no need for it to be. It again, it just captures that mood perfectly. The music and the lyric are perfectly in sync with each other, and that's what you want from a song like this. There's not really an awful lot of analysis to do. What analysis do you do on you know, the sun is shining down, burns my feet as they touch the ground? It's I mean, it's just perfect. It's just a simple little piece of
Yeah.
imagery, but you know, that's fine. We've all been out on a hot day and done that, and that's great. Like even here in Scotland, and it just works perfectly for the music that's behind it. So yeah,
I,
there's not a lot to say about the lyric, but it works.
we keep trying to close down the conversation. It's quite funny. I did spend a little bit of time yesterday actually trying to research what the weather was like in 1966 in the summer.
Good, good
And
seems to be the consensus.
yeah, but also, you know, warm, but also wet. And you know, certainly in parts of the UK. So I don't think there was any conclusion that could be drawn from it, although people were trying to draw conclusions from it, by, you know, putting together Sunny Afternoon and Good Day Sunshine, and a couple of other songs that sort of had, you know, similar titles, and similar ideas in, which is absolutely fine. I think the Loving Spoonful
Oh yeah,
was
Daydream.
one. Daydream.
Painted
Yeah.
Black I heard as well. A slightly darker take on it, but
Yeah, tad.
Yeah,
tad.
you can sort of see it there. Yeah, yeah, and of course, Sunny Afternoon, the Kinks. But I don't know, because that's such a melancholy edge to Sunny Afternoon, a song I adore, to be clear. But
Yeah.
it's got a really kind of melancholy edge that neither Daydream by the Lovin' Spoonful or Good Day Sunshine have. So yeah,
But I think it's more that people are trying to draw the links between,
for sure.
rather than, that's fine. I'm sure they've done much more research than I have into the what was going on in May, June, July of 1966.
I, for one,
And
appreciate your approach to meteorology and the quality of research that you have done. Thank you for that.
thank you. In other words, I didn't really get very far, and then just started to moan at other people, which is perfectly fine.
That's fine.
Um, But what of course is relatively interesting with a couple of the songs that we've looked at recently is though, the album's recorded, then the Beatles go on their final tour, but of course there's no attempt to play any of those songs. And actually, I mean, Good Day Sunshine is one that they could have worked in, bearing in mind how sparse the instrumentation is and the reliance upon the vocals, but they're just not that interested. And for once, I admire that sense of, well, we're going to muck about in the studio, we're going to put some ideas together, and then we're going to leave it behind. It doesn't mean it's a bad song, it just means it's done its job. Although it is a song that McCartney has included a reasonable amount in his live shows over the last 35 years.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
saw McCartney in 1990 when he did the Let It Be Liverpool and Get Back to Glasgow gigs. And
Okay.
obviously, unsurprisingly, I saw him in Glasgow. And I think that was around the time where he started doing Good Day Sunshine. And I had a quick look prior to starting this recording as to whether I had then actually heard him do it live, because he may well have done it at that concert. But I couldn't get a track list up in time, so I don't know.
Okay.
What a
Right.
useful anecdote that is.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out. So that was in 1990.
Yes, yeah, the exhibition centre in Glasgow in 1990.
So right. I'm okay. I'm going to start this with an apology because we've known each other since 1991, and either you've never told me that, or you've told me it and I wasn't listening, or I've completely forgotten that you've told me that. In which case, I apologize.
Well, I accept your apology, but I don't know which of those. I don't know whether you need to apologise or not. I don't remember whether I've ever mentioned it before or not. But yeah, I saw him in 1990.
It kind of feels like the sort of thing that would have come up in conversation.
It seems likely, right? After all this time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But so, yeah, so I might have heard him doing it live, but I might not have done. I just don't know. Yeah, that's not very helpful.
There are quite a few clips and recordings of McCartney playing this live, and I would say the ones that I've listened to, without a shadow of shadow of a doubt, are entirely underwhelming. And I feel like that's oh, man criticizes McCartney for playing his own songs live kind of thing. But I think it sort of speaks to some of the things that we've been talking about, in that the band are excellent. They are proficient. They are all fantastically in tune with each other in what they do. It's just not the Beatles. And there's something about that recording sitting alongside those other tracks on the album, when you're looking at the cover and you're going, wow, this is a Beatles record, and you've got McCartney and you've got Lennon, Harrison and Starr all together, that just has an aura in exactly the same way that McCartney on stage with a bunch of brilliant musicians doesn't. A little bit like with Ringo Starr and the All Star Band. You've got Ringo Starr there. You've got some brilliant people on stage with him who've sold millions of records between them, and yeah, but you were better when you were with the other guys, and they're probably, actually no, they're probably not sick of hearing it, because nobody probably tells them that because they're too scared. Um, but I think it's just one of those realities of life, that moment that is captured in the studio is better than those moments on stage. That's that's fine. So in some ways, what I'm saying is that some of the worst cover versions of Good Day Sunshine are done by Paul McCartney.
I don't necessarily think that that is a bad take. In fact, quite the opposite. Yeah, I sort of mentioned this a little bit before we started recording, but the song that's in that vein, the song that this reminds me of is "Ventilator Blues" by the Rolling Stones, which is another song that it just exists in its moment, and the band haven't played it live because they tried and they just couldn't quite manage to recapture what it was that made it so great. And it's on Exile apart from anything else, so that kind of speaks for itself. But it's just perfect in the form
Mm,
it is. So you know what, we're just going to leave it alone. We're not going to try and replicate it in a way that is inferior to the album version.
yeah.
And like, I have heard like a couple of McCartney live versions of Good Day Sunshine, of course, and they're all fine, they're competent, but so what? It's not a song that really seems to come across in that context, and it's kind of a shame because, but yeah, it's perfect in the form that it's already in, and that's fine.
And I think there is that I think maybe the recording of it is the problem, because there are probably loads of people at those gigs who walked away going, "Oh wow, that was amazing! Played all my favorite songs. Oh, there was that one from Revolver. That was amazing just to hear the band. I never thought I'd hear them play that, and it's absolutely amazing." But then, of course, the content gets uploaded or recorded, released on a live album, and the DVD and the video, and then clips on YouTube, and you're back going, "Oh, it wasn't as good as I remembered it." Well, the chances are it was brilliant to you in that moment, and I can imagine that watching McCartney play "Live and Let Die" with the fireworks going off at the appropriate moment in the song probably just means it is just amazing, man.
I gotta say, actually, yeah, that was amazing to
Yeah,
see live back in the day. And yeah, you have those moments, and that's fine. Like you because you're in the moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, it was a great performance. I don't want to speak to
yeah.
that performance of "Live and Let Die," but with "Good Day Sunshine," yeah, if you're in the moment and you love it and it matters to you and you're thrilled that you've seen him do it, that's great. But objectively, is it as good as the Revolver version?
and
Probably
I
not.
will contend to this day that the best feeling I've ever had at a live gig was the Waterboys on the Fisherman Blues tour at the Kilburn National in, I think it would have been '89. Absolutely phenomenal. What a brilliant night that was. But I have looked at the track listing since then on Set List, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I don't remember playing that. It's fine. It was a really, really good night. Um, but I wouldn't want to hear a recording of it now, because I probably would go, "Oh, not as good as I thought. It's fine. Live in the moment, live in the memory. And that's so much better. And I think that whole notion now of people recording everything and then putting it on YouTube. Okay, fine. If it if it makes you happy, if it's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. But again, this is old men talking about things, blah blah blah. That moment is still quite a powerful one, and repeating that moment, I think, diminishes the emotion that you felt at the time. And I can sort of think back to sports events I've been to that would be exactly the same as that as well. In fact, Florence Welsh, and I think she does this at every gig now. But there's a moment to tell, "Oh, put your phones away, live in the moment," and that sort of thing, which is fine. And some people clearly don't want to do that. But you can kind of understand the point that she's making in relation to that. It's be in the moment. Not everything has to live forever. Some things can just be ephemeral and be all the better for them. Right, okay, that's slight diversion then. Yeah, okay, right. So out of interest then, I've started us off on the cover version route. Did you did you manage to do much in the way of research on covers? You've been much better at me recently on researching covers.
I've done a little bit, but I think you have a little bit more material in the tank than I do as far as this was concerned. I gotta be honest. I made a terrible mistake when looking at cover versions this episode, which I don't feel is completely my fault, but it just I listened to the Tremolos cover version of this, and it is absolute dog shit. It is terrible, and my enthusiasm for doing cover version research just kind of drained away. It's sorry if there's any big Tremlos fans out there, but you're
Yeah.
wrong, and your band is terrible. But their cover version of Good Day Sunshine, particularly, is really bad, and yeah, it sort of sucked the life out of me a little bit. So I think on this one, I think I'm more than happy to hand over to you and let you do some cover version work.
Is that the Chip Hawkes band? Is that the one
Uh,
that Chesney's dad was in?
Oh, I don't know actually.
I don't know.
You
Okay.
know, this. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a very quick diversion, but I was watching an episode of The Bill, which for our non-British listeners is a very old police series,
Are
and
you watching the Bill?
I love The Bill. The Bill is
You
awesome.
home from
Anyway,
work sick.
oh God, listen, I am a very old man and I do not care. But it happened to be the one that Chesney Hawkes was in. Just
Okay.
yeah, sorry, it's a very, very, very short diversion. Anyway, The Bill's great. Carry on.
Leonard Donald Stanley Chip Hawkes is best known for being a member of the Tremolos
There you go.
and for being the father of Chesney Hawkes. I'd say probably more the latter these days,
I would
as
certainly think so.
his audience is reducing in size.
I don't put a polite way of
As
saying dying.
well, yeah. I was sort of trying to work out how far to extend that in terms of being eaten by worms, but let's not go into that. I'm going to start with um, the fact that Apple Music led me to believe I was going to have two quite exciting covers that turned out not to be covers at all. How amazed was I to find out that Slow Dive have a song called Good Day Sunshine. And after about 5 minutes of this slightly moody instrumental, I was thinking this is not gonna. All right, let's just skip forward, skip forward, skip forward. Maybe this is just a sort of moody introduction. No, it's not Good Day Sunshine. It's their own instrumental song called Good Day Sunshine. Yeah, that was a shame. And also, I was quite intrigued by the Good Day Sunshine band with Tim Minchin as being a prospect, and a song called Good Day Sunshine. Again, not a thing, but it turns out to be from a TV show called Eric, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, in which he is a very grumpy creator of a kids' puppet show called Good Day Sunshine. Um, and it was the theme song from that. So nice song, not a cover. Um, but I will start us off with a return to form from the Beat Bugs with Robbie Williams, and it's okay. Robbie Williams can sing a tune. Now,
I mean, I wish he wouldn't, but yeah, he can.
do you want another Robbie Williams Beatles connection that I only came across this week?
Sure, go for
Are
it.
you aware of the connection between the song Angels and the Beatles?
No, I can't say that I am.
The person playing the slide guitar in Angels and the guitar solo on Angels was the original and long-lasting George Harrison in the Bootleg Beatles.
Oh, there you go.
My apologies,
That's
I didn't write his name down. Um, but
yeah.
bear in
This
mind,
is that's all right. People must be used to the fact that research is not our top of our abilities at this point.
but do bear in mind that the original and very long-lasting Paul was Dave Caitlin Birch, who was in World Party, and he's been mentioned before as well. So the Bootleg Beatles is getting a little bit of love from us. But there you go. I'm also going to mention one that I quite liked, which is American singer Lou Rawls, which is really smooth, and he's got quite a good voice. The only thing about it was the female backing singers singing the Good Day Sunshine parts, and he then did everything else. And it just made it sound a little bit too Radio 2 for my liking. Again, when I say that, I mean Radio 2 from the 80s kind of
Yeah, yeah.
thing. So just a little bit too smooth. Slightly more interesting than that was Ben from Corduroy. And the album is titled Ben from Corduroy. Corduroy is always a band that I've been aware of, but never actually listened to, in that sort of acid jazz
Yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
territory. It's pretty good. But it took me a while to work out. So it comes from an album of Beatles covers that he did, and the singer on it is Maker Ejole, Um, and actually, she sings in a kind of like an Eartha Kitt style, sort of a scat jazz type thing with a bit of a growl to it, which is really good and almost made me interested in listening to some of the other songs on it because they're not the usual. They're mostly Beatles songs from around this period, and then into perhaps Pepper as well. And when you see Good Day Sunshine and Getting Better, as covers, as part of the selection of covers, you think, okay, well, that's going to be worth investing in. So I might have a little listen and see if I can dig up some more versions of that. Which then leads me on to, are you aware that Eddie Murphy had a recording career?
Unfortunately, I am. Yes,
Yeah.
I have heard a couple of things that he has recorded.
So,
I'll just leave that statement there.
no, it's fine. And actually, what I find interesting about this, it comes from his third album, third and least successful album. And there are, a few covers on it, and it is quite. But the thing that struck me as being really interesting was that if you take away some of the things that have been overlaid onto it, it's quite a straightforward um version of it's his voice is perfectly okay, but they have all these weird little overdubs of him laughing, for example, and making some other sounds. And it's that kind of traditional
Yeah, yeah,
Eddie
yeah.
Murphy laugh, the kind of thing you can imagine from some of the films, that kind of deep chuckle. And you just think you don't need it. Take it away, and you've got a reasonably okay version of it. But because you're trying to make it sound like it is Eddie Murphy being wacky, that it really doesn't work, which was very, very odd. Um, just to give you an idea of something else that's on the album, that's track 11. So interesting choice with regards to that. Track 12 is Hey Joe,
Oh, right.
as
That's
in, Hey
yeah,
Joe,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, which is just really, really odd.
Hendrix wouldn't have been on my list of things I would have to guess to be on that album.
Well, actually, funny enough, the one thing I learned from looking at it is it was not written by Jimi Hendrix. Has become a standard, and written by, and let's see if I can find this, some people who aren't listed here. Billy
But let's face it,
Roberts.
he probably came to it from the Hendrix version, just like
Oh
most
yeah,
people
yeah,
come
yeah,
to All
yeah.
Along the
You would
Watchtower
have
from
thought,
Hendrix, not
yeah.
Dylan.
So even more bizarrely on this album, track 1 is a song called Yeah, lyrics Eddie Murphy brackets concept. Um, Backing vocals on that song includes, we'll start with Patti LaBelle, stage singer, amazing. You'd have heard a lot more stuff by Patti LaBelle than you would be aware of. Teddy Pendergrass, okay,
Okay.
interesting. Richie Sambora, okay, more of a musician than a singer, but really, really well known. Luther Vandross, Barry White, a Mr. S. Wonder, Julio Iglesias, Janet Jackson. I mean, what is going on here? Um, oh, by the way, I've just seen another one. It's listed as Hammer, but it is MC. Amy Grant on Vogue. What the hell is going on? John Bon Jovi, you got Richie Sambora, of course, why not? Michael Jackson, Elton John, and P. McCartney. You see all of these people. I mean, what is going on here? Um, Really, really odd. But
My famous friends are on this record.
it does feel a little bit like it. And again, doing stuff like that detracts from what you can actually do, because you then end
Yeah.
up reviewing the people that are on it, just like with Good Day Sunshine, you end up reviewing the little bits that have been dubbed onto it rather than the song itself. But at least when um Bruce Willis did Under the Boardwalk, you could critique him
Yeah, you
and
sure
his
could.
singing, Um, although he did a good cover of the Kane Gang's "Respect Yourself." That was quite good. But then
I'll
that
have to
was
take your word for that.
yeah, okay, fair enough. Rather than him doing all his moonlighting ad libs, thing. Oh well, it was terrible. It's a straightforward song. Critique the voice. But here, you sort of think, okay, well, I can't really listen to the song because they're putting these overdubs on. Really, really odd. So there you go, folks. That's things you never thought you'd get, which was about 5 minutes of Eddie Murphy chat.
Good, lovely. Well, we like to have some additional content, right?
Sure, why not?
Okay, good. I have absolutely nothing else to say about this song, so I am just going to ask you for the score because I'm guessing you probably don't either.
I obviously remember my antipathy to the scores. I'm in a little bit of a dilemma because it is very good, but it doesn't linger in the memory. And I think as a result, I'm gonna go 7.
7. I don't think that's unfair. It's a fairly slight song, even though it's perfect in the form that it's in. So I'm just going to go marginally higher and go for 7.5, which on my scale is the lowest song I've given anything, lowest score rather, I've given anything to on Revolver,
Yeah,
and for
that computes.
yeah, and for you, the only other song in Revolver that you've given a 7 to is Here, There, and Everywhere. Everything else has been higher.
Okay,
So,
I'm okay with that. I was a bit worried that I'd only been giving eights up till now, but oh
no,
no, I
1-7.
wasn't. When I say worried, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't want you lying awake at night, Andrew. That's
yeah, no, not doing that, not doing that.
okay.
Yeah,
Good. All right, let's
okay,
wrap things
wrap it
up
up and
there
get to the
then.
airport.
Lovely. I will certainly do that. You can really get a hold of us. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. If Eddie Murphy wants to get in touch and tell us what the hell was going on with that album, that would be really fabulous as well. We're on Instagram at BeatlesStuffology, and you can find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you're using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, and your bird can sing. But until then, keep listening.